Okay, it's a series of structural wall panels that are in Colorado, and they're reinforced with rebar. And as the write-up, the wall is approximately 23 feet wide and 24 feet high, and there's columns that support each one, and there's a total of 6 panels. So it's a lot of concrete. As I said, it's rebar reinforced, custom designed and constructed for a project that never came to be. So they're sitting at a material distribution center, and our challenge is what to do with them.
So are they erected or
They're on the ground, they're stacked up, staged.
can you explain what the project was about?
I don't have, they've been there for a while. It was, they were going to be a firewall at a substation. And they've been there for quite a while, and it's just out of sight, out of mind, but then I think they need the space, so then they came to us and trying to figure out what to do with them. Let me see, each one, the panels range in weight, let's say 6,200 pounds each. And the 3 columns that go with each set they're about 5,400 each.
Have you checked with Damon at Repurposed Materials?
That was a suggestion I had made to Dane that works for Excel. I don't know if he did or if he's heard back, but no, that was my thought as well.
Special rail cars and everything, so it was really transportation that held them back. But these are smaller, so somebody like that might be able to have a use for them.
Okay, guys, I know this is cumbersome, but we're trying to get this recorded, so if you want to speak, raise your hand. We need to get you on the mic so it gets recorded, so.
Hey, Barry, we got somebody here.
Go ahead.
Have you thought about maybe donating them to a public park or whatever, have them use them as basically floral or sound barriers, that's maybe this park is close to a highway or something, and they can incorporate them into the park structure, and then, you know.
And your company name could be on the side of the park.
There you go.
I don't know if this is a true purpose for them, but I thought, are there, I thought of a bunker, right? Are there people that doomsdayers that said that they want to make a bunker in their basement? They might want to.
Paul, am I reading this right? They're 24 feet high by 23 feet long? That's what it's written up, but you can't move those. You might as well bust them up. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have enough volume to turn it into anything significant, so if you're not going to try to repurpose it to something close by, you can't move it because it's oversized. You need to call a recycler of concrete. You can find them online. We sold 750 pumping units out of West Texas. They all have giant concrete pads, and what held everybody back from buying them is that they had to take the pad. So we brought in a concrete recycler, had him stand by, and he took all the units where people didn't want the concrete, and that raised the price for our selling customer about 35% just by them not having to take it off the property. So they're around, and that's the fastest. You may actually have to pay because it's really a small job to get it done, but you'll get it out of there.
Wait. Can you repeat it, please?
Yeah. Based on the drawing I'm looking at here, it's 6 individual panels that comprise the entire wall. Well, it's 22 feet, you divide it by half, so 11 feet wide each panel by roughly 8.5 feet. So, yeah, they can be trucked out pretty easily, actually. Yeah. Yeah, if you look at how it goes together.
Thank you.
Any other ideas on what to do with this? Creative ideas? We make an aquarium.
You also might be able to find some buyers if you rent them through an auction, because something that's 11 feet by 8 feet might make a nice pad for a garden shed or something for somebody that would buy it at auction.
I'm Christina. I'm with Encore Electric Delivery, and I'm relatively new to IR. And what I was hoping to get out of this, which I kind of am, but I didn't know if y'all could touch on it, because this is very fun, for one. People helping people is the way to go. But I was hoping for possibly a strategy. What I'm hearing is start local. Look at your manufacturers, look at something close, look at something that could possibly be a good nature-oriented coral reef, amazing, great idea. So I was wondering if there's somebody that deals with this frequently that possibly has a strategy, like a hit list that they go down until they get to the pinch zone. So that's it.
Well, I can kind of answer that or talk to that. And basically, we promote going by the 7 R's. So in other words, that's your hierarchy. You're going to go down that chain, and the higher values are going to be received by those R's at the top, and the final one is remove, which is a cost. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. But I think that that's a good strategy for dealing with any object, any item that come across. So, yes.
I got it, Kelly. You got it? I got it.
Checklist in hand. I deal with clients, and my group works only with complicated assets. Usually these assets are very expensive, and they're very specialized, so they're very hard to get rid of, and they're carrying a lot of value. But in going through a quick checklist of what we do when we talk to clients the first time, and our clients don't come back every week with things for us to sell, they come back occasionally. They work on standard stuff with other people in the company. So we get called in when there's something that they think is going to be tough. And what we start with on our checklist, and I'll go through this just very quickly, is first we have to find out why the internal client wants to sell the asset. What is the reason they want to sell it? Why do they want to sell it? Is it a canceled project? Is it equipment that's idle now that's being pulled out of a project? Find out all the elements of that we can. We look at restrictions. There's restrictions clients have. It could be intellectual property. It could be business competition issues that they're going to restrict where they're going to sell the assets, government restrictions, and then issues where they don't want to identify the seller. We need to understand all that, because that's going to affect who we can sell it to externally, how much we can charge for it, and where we want to go in the marketplace with it. As far as market research, we do an overall market status of the asset, where they've been sold before, if they've ever been sold before, if it's an asset. Trying to establish what the values with the clients. I don't know how many people here get involved with book value issues, but generally I'm brought things that they spent $10 million for. The project got canceled. It's worth 800 grand. and we have to meet and spend time with finance people and with all the business leaders and everybody. It can take months and months for them to finally decide they want to go ahead and sell the asset and take the write-off on the asset. So those are issues where we have to bring to them enough knowledge and enough information so that they can make a decision like that, because it's usually a painful or hurtful decision to have to make. Financial data, we want to know original acquisition costs. We want to understand, as part of that from finance, how much of that is really the equipment? Is this what you're giving me to sell, or was there 50% of that engineering, 25% of that was construction, planning, other costs that are in the asset but really aren't part of the asset that you can sell? So you try to segregate that out so the client can take write-offs on some of that because he's not, he understands we're not going to sell it. Removal costs, understanding what it's going to take to get it out. It may cost more to remove it than we can get for it, or that may be all he desires as opposed to money on the asset. We moved an asset over Christmas that was worth several $1 million. It was old, but the removal cost was almost $350,000. We found a buyer in Asia at $350,000 plus $25,000 or $50,000 in cash, but they did all the removal and got it out of the building. So understanding exactly what the real benefit is to the internal client is important to have up front, because it's not always money. Could be timing, could be other things related to that. I put down the number one most important thing in selling complicated assets, especially if they're large and expensive, is time. Time is your greatest ally in finding a buyer, building a market, finding people who might be willing to buy the asset. And when clients come and say, I have this asset, it costs us a lot of money, we have to get rid of it, you have 2 weeks to sell it or 4 weeks to sell it, you're just setting yourself up for defeat. And that's where you have to sit down and explain with the person who needs to sell the asset and find out maybe they really only have 2 weeks and they're stuck and they came late and they were told to get it out of the building or move it off the site. And then that's going to be a long shot whether you can do anything on that. Cataloging, marketing, seller cooperation is one of the biggest things internally. Having clients who have somebody with expertise on the site, because if you have a 120-day, 1-year cycle to sell something, you need somebody on site who can constantly be answering questions and helping and building up the information profile so that you do a much better chance of, over time, engaging the exact right buyer who now has all the answers to it, who knows what it's going to cost to get it out, and you have a much better chance of getting to a very successful outcome on the asset. So that type of time and planning becomes really important, and that's the marriage between the seller and people in investment recovery who are trying to come up with a solution on the assets.
Yes. Has Dane considered the cost of doing nothing on this thing? Essentially just leaving it in place. Is it causing any problems for the business? Is it really going to be worth any more effort they've already put into it? That's kind of, yeah, that's.
Okay. I buy material from people in investment recovery, and in my experience over the past 40 years, I've seen, especially at the federal government level, they'll bundle material. And it's just like you were saying earlier, you got the pumps there, and everybody wants the pumps, but they don't want to remove the concrete. But sometimes if you set up a bid where you bundle it with something of value, you're going to take less money for something. I mean, because money is money. I mean, you're either going to have to get rid of the asset yourself and send them a check, or you can sell it off with a bundle of material that has value. That's another way to look at it.
Thank you.
That's really important when clients have assets and not understanding what their motivation is. It can really hurt you, because you tend to want to say, well, we want to give you the best outcome. okay, and we're going to get you when I hear somebody say we're going to get you the best price, then I always want to slow down and say, let's determine what the best outcome is. Because we have clients who will say, I just want to get rid of this, I just put it in for $100 in the auction and sell it, I just want to get rid of it. But then when you look in the terms and conditions of it, you see they've got a logistics fee where you have to use their contractor to load it out. It's a $2,100 an hour to load it onto your truck with a $700 minimum. By the time you're done, this guy can buy a brand new one. Or you have old oil tanks sitting in an oil field with a 1/4 inch of oil in the bottom of them. They're not clean. We got to get rid of them. And then they're in North Dakota, and you say, can a buyer come in and do hot work on your site? Oh, no, nobody can do hot work on my site. And I say, do you think somebody's going to drive 1,200 miles to the middle of North Dakota and then pull up something that's 32 feet in diameter and haul it out of there in an oversized load? And you want to know why we can't sell it? Why we can't get it sold? So that type of back and forth with the client early gets everybody to the right thinking and the right result. And we can demonstrate clearly to your internal seller may know a lot about the equipment. He doesn't know much about disposition. All he knows is if he can give you a piece of paper and you're in charge of getting rid of it, then he's in good shape. He can say, I've got it in the hands of somebody in the company that's going to get rid of it. But if we don't get all the right data together so that we can engage properly with the people on the outside, you're going to have a tough time selling the asset.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so let's keep the ball rolling. Anybody have another commodity or an item that you're having a difficult time selling and you want some direction?
I got it, Kelly. Go ahead.
My name is JP Saplita. I'm with Encore Electric Delivery as well. We are in the midst of the LED streetlight conversions, and right now it hasn't really hit hard, but some of the more affluent communities in the Dallas-Fort Worth area are looking at this, and they're gonna on the next go round they're gonna probably do wholesale, and so we're gonna have a lot of streetlight heads, perfectly functional ones. They're just of the old Mercury design, and I'm gonna be up to my ears in them soon. So anybody can help, please.
Within North America.
Within North America, one of the restrictions is no outside North America.
Have you guys considered looking at transitioning your mercury vapor lights over to LED? So using the structure of the light and then rebuilding or refurbishing to turn them into LEDs. We're taking a look at that ourselves.
Yes. We are actually doing the conversion.
Wait. I'm running.
We are actually doing the conversion, and we're going to have the bulbs. The bulbs is the big one, and we have also a stockpile, obviously, of unused bulbs that we're going to also be trying to get rid of. And some of the heads do not, because some of the heads are older, do not have the conversion, so we'd have to put a new head on. So we're looking for something in a bulk buy, and we're just trying to get ahead of it to get some potential bidders out there so that when we do start consolidating everything, we won't have a big bulk sitting on site taking up a lot of space, and or we already know that we need to go straight to recycle because it's not even possible, so we don't want to waste on that transportation and storage. So we just didn't know if there was any other utilities out there that have possibly already dealt with this and had some ideas.
Xcel Energy is about 2 years into a 5-year conversion from the old style Cobra heads to the LEDs. And part of the approval process was that we not put the old ones back out in the market, because they said as a company we're moving towards greater efficiency, and it did make sense. It wasn't a responsible thing to take less efficient technology and put it out there for use. So we were basically mandated to dispose of or recycle the Cobra heads. So what we are doing is removing the environmentally sensitive components, the bulb, the capacitor, the photocell, disposing of them through environmental services, through a vendor, and then taking the actual Cobra head fixture and then recycling it. And we're, getting, it's like aluminum breakage, but we are bringing money back that's going towards the project. So that's the model we're taking.
My company also does that. We've been doing it for years, and we haven't found that there's any other option for managing those.
I did explore maybe, sending it overseas for, as a humanitarian, like as whole, but because the bulbs are so sensitive, it's just didn't make sense. So I was wondering if this was somebody off the chain thinking of something.
Thank you. Here you go, Colleen.
One of the things that I saw at Con Ed was that when they take those street lights down, they actually have the ARC dismantling them, so where you can get a community bonus for it, where you're using people who are hard to employ to disassemble them. So it might not be as good as sending them out whole, but you are doing a benefit. They get a job and something to do, and they do a really great job too in dismantling them and getting them ready for recycling. And then the heads themselves, you might want to check with after they've dismantled them and taken out all the pieces. You can check with somebody like repurposedmaterials.com to see if they have a use, because they like things that are of mass quantities and similar, because then they put it out on their website and say, what ideas do people have to reuse these? So you might be able to find a way to reuse them, at least the whole heads. There might be something out there.
Thank you.
So we have an ethanol plant that's got 3 centrifuges that have been decommissioned somewhere up north. And the struggle has not been to find buyers for these things. The struggle has been to manage the expectations of the ethanol plant. These things are worth, I don't know, $300,000 or so a piece, and we've had offers that were what I would consider to be reasonable, but I cannot get plant principals to bite. So I was wondering if anybody else had any struggles with trying to manage those expectations and how to be a little bit more convincing and say, look, guys, this is about the best we're going to get for this thing, and maybe being a little bit more convincing.
I had a situation where the company that I worked for at the time, bought big power generators to run a mill, and they were jet propelled. And they got a deal. They bought one for installation, and they bought a second one because they got a good price on the second one, thinking that it was going to go into another plant. And what they found out that the equipment was really not suited to the use. So they had this brand new, still on skids, big generator, jet power generator with all the spare parts and everything stored in a building, and it cost like $2 million new. We were able to find a buyer as an investment recovery man. We were able to find a buyer for $1.2 million, but it was on the books for $1.8 million, and so we went through the same struggle. And for approximately 5 years, we went back and forth with this, and we ended up finally saying, you're never going to get any money for it. It's not getting any more valuable. It's just getting older, and it's not like fine wine. It's not going to appreciate. And we ended up selling it for like $700,000.
So I take a little hard line with investment recovery. I don't tell the operator how to run his plant, and he doesn't tell me how to sell his product. So when he turns it over to me, we make him sign a form that says, I release this to IR to sell. We sell it. I don't even consult. I do ask him what the estimated value of it is, so we can make a determination if, hey, it's decent. But I don't go back to the owner and say, hey, I got a $500,000 bid. Can I sell it? That's not his purview. That's mine. So.
So I was saying I agree. Once it becomes surplus and that determination's been made, then it kind of should fall on investment recovery. That's our mandate. That's our remit to the organization. So it just seems like, yeah, it's kind of wasted effort if you're going to just keep trying to, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that, and but I think that a lot of people in here probably work for companies that have delegations of authority, and those usually have a dollar limit on it. And it may be, you know, it may be that you can sell anything you want up to $1 million or something like that. But at some point in time, upper management, depending on the value of the asset, upper management's going to have to make a call.
In most companies, there is, you know, it's highly structured. And so one of the things that I saw this morning, I can't remember if it was Chris or Mike that were talking about it from Cox or Energy, is that when you get told no, you have to look for a different way. So if you get told no, then you have to start thinking, how can I get them to say yes? And sometimes it isn't going to happen right away, and they're going to lose value. But what you can do is you can make it very transparent so that everybody up above understands that they lost money because they waited. And so you just have to make it so that you expose that there's something going on, so that somebody maybe even higher up says, what are we doing? And why aren't we capitalizing on this? And so sometimes you can get some movement that way. But going against that same door that's telling you no, it's not going to work.
And I think we all probably have internal customers. Dave, I have the same situation, the same form, the same strategy. But when I'm looking at a $4 million transformer and I have a vice president who comes to me and says, this is not going out the door for any less than X dollars, you know, I can argue all I want to and tell them, look, I'm investment recovery, and I usually lose the battle against a VP. So, yeah, again, it's the strategy and the relationship building that we have to be dominant on. So, anybody else?
Yeah. Two things quickly. You brought up a really great point. If you haven't read your company's internal finance policy on capital, you need to get a copy of it, because that is the Bible and that is the legal document. And I've worked for more than 100 global clients, and it can take a year to get finance policy changed. But if you get finance policy aligned with the process of investment recovery, then that will help drive all the behavior in the plants, regardless of what a plant manager or somebody else says. Because if it says, if it's not operating in production, then it's idle. If it sits there for more than 90 days, it's surplus. If it's surplus, it undergoes accelerated depreciation. When it goes under accelerated depreciation, that's hitting your plant P&L as fast as it can hit it, and you have to get rid of it. And you have X amount of days to put a plan together and present the plan and say, we're going to sell it and we're going to return as much as we can return to the company. It takes a long time, but when it's in place, I've sat with the head of investment recovery at Procter & Gamble, and a plant calls and says, we got this and this and this. He says, okay, do you want to sell it? Yeah, we want to sell it. Fine. Send me this form, look it up in the book, 1620A, sign it, send it over, we'll sell it. Yeah, but we want to talk to you about it because we got a lot of book value with it. Call me back when you want to sell it, okay? And that's how to do it. In your particular instance, it's easy to say that. It doesn't mean that it's a 99% rule, because it's not. And then when you get involved in like the energy business, where you have a lot of joint ventures, where you have 5 partners on an asset that's being sold, and one guy is going to speak for the majority, but he can't just do what he wants, and if you have to bring him back a price. So when you have something like that, you have to take the asset and you have to give him enough data on how special is it, how too small is it, how too big is it, how expensive is all the elements that can be used, so he can turn around and say, yeah, I know we spent $1 million, but we're only going to get 120,000 because of A, B, C, D, E, the market, all the different elements together, and it may take them 90 days before they bite the bullet, but they're going to have a reason to go back to their leadership and say, we had to sell it. And that's the price we're going to get. That's the market today talking to us.
So right now, I'm relegated to doing what this young lady said, which was just documenting everything, and just saying, look, this is what I'm doing, document it, and then present that to the people who are actually this guy's boss. So that's really all I can do right now. But yeah, I agree. That's a very structured approach. I think that's the way to go about it. Find the policy, find whatever I need to basically build a more structured process and then present that to principals at the plant and see.
Finance ultimately can be your best friend in especially multiple plants, different plants that make different types of products. Finance can be your best friend because they're looking for two things. One, they look at investment recovery as kind of being a policeman to manage these assets so they don't end up being not managed well in recovery, and they say, well, I don't know, they threw it away, or it went that way, I don't know where it is. They want somebody to clean that up and clean up the paperwork and provide them back, so they look at investment recovery as a valuable partner, eyes and ears out in the plant, so they'll try to help you, and those are the kind of people who can, as they gain more trust in that process with you, they'll come to you and say, they just wrote off this project. And now they've got these 6 assets. I don't want to lose track of them or anything else. What can you do to help us?
Great, thank you. So, one last time, anybody have anything else they want to, back in the corner?
Thank you. Testing. I have something that's, I'll call it a catch-22 situation. Some of you may be aware that one of our nuclear plants, we had a catastrophe about 7 years ago. A stator was dropped, and it has been given to investment recovery about 2 years ago to dispose of this unit. So it's basically scrap metal. It does have some copper value, but most of it's just basic steel. The interesting thing is that when we started investigating on what we could get for the value of it, now we're talking roughly a 1 million pound piece of iron and copper, okay, bigger than a boxcar, etc. So environmental got involved because it has asbestos and lead paint because of its age. So the actual cost, the site wants it removed, but the cost of doing the abatement and the lead, etc., is going to cost more than the scrap value. But we're still chartered with removing this, but the site does not want to pay the money. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. And it's even been rumored that the CEO would like it removed, but there again, I have no authority to authorize to do any of that. So, anybody have a situation like that?
Just got one question, is what form is the asbestos? Is it in some type of mastic, or is it friable, non-friable?
I can't really answer that.
Okay. Reason I'm saying is because if it's non-friable, and part of the definition of what is and what is not asbestos is if it's 1% by weight asbestos, and you have to consider it as asbestos. And so if it's a mastic, then if anybody here disagrees with me, just please let me know. But my experience talking with the EPA under NESHAPs, they basically said that if it's less than 1% asbestos, then you don't have to consider it as asbestos if the asbestos is considered a manufactured component. And so that's just something to think about.
Oh, it's already been evaluated. I just can't answer your question, so I'm going to say that it's more than 1%. Because of the cost value, they're looking at doing the abatement on the unit itself.
Mm-hmm.
The other option we have is to basically put the thing under a circus tent and hide it. Either that or remove it. And right now, the company doesn't want to pay the cost to do the abatement.
We had a similar, excuse me, we had a similar situation with some large fan rotors that are on 40-inch diameter solid steel journals. They're 40 feet long, and the total weight of the rotor is something like 400,000 pounds, but you can't, it's scrap metal. It doesn't have a use, but it is so big and so heavy that it can't be moved, and you can't get any, you're not going to be able to torch cut a journal that's 40 inches in diameter. So just waiting for it to sink into the ground, I guess.
Some things don't get better with time. And I'm going to say, did you say it was a stator or a rotor?
It's a stator.
Stator. Okay. It's not going to get better. It's probably being depreciated as we speak. So it is hitting your company's bottom line, more than likely. Probably bought on capital, something that expensive, more than likely. So it's not going to get better. I'd suggest you bite the bullet and demo it.
Well, it was damaged, when it was dropped. I mean, it was being rigged, and that's when the catastrophe happened. So it's of no use whatsoever. It's scrap value only.
Okay, 1 second, please.
Who was the rigger? Was it your company? Was it the company? So it was a rigging company that came in that you hired and dropped it? What about the liability insurance for that company? They must have had something.
So the only I just wanted to ask this question because it's a nuclear facility or whatever, is that, I've never had a situation where HSC didn't ultimately override every other decision in the place. And if you've got a piece of equipment that's $10,000 and it's contaminated with something, and HE says we're going to mitigate it, and it costs $500,000 to mitigate it, it doesn't matter. It's going to get mitigated. They're going to do something, even if they do something on an alternative way. There's no such thing as leaving stuff lying around and saying, well, we don't have enough money to take care of it or fix it, and we're just going to leave it if that's a driving issue. And when we hear those things happen, the first thing you do is just stand back and watch it happen, and it could be 3 months before you get back on the job to work on it based on what they're going to do with it. But I've never seen anybody just put something on the side and say, we have environmental issues, so we're not going to deal with it.
Thank you.
Okay, so, we get another one? Great.
Yes?
I guess it's me. The one thing I would just watch is scrap metals recovering, and copper prices are expected to go up in 2018. So what I would do is get a breakdown of what's actually in the stator and just watch the market, and maybe get close enough where you may be able to convince management to pull the trigger.
Thank you.
Great idea. All right, I'm on the conference committee, and this was one of our ideas this year, is to have an open forum where we could talk rather than come in and have a presenter. So, is this what you want? Was this good? A waste of time? Okay. So my next question is, what can we do to make it better? Honestly, I expected to be 20 people in here around the table talking back and forth, and the turnout is phenomenal. I apologize we weren't set up for this to have multiple mics stationed and that kind of stuff, but live and learn, right? So anybody have any feedback for me, what we can do next year to make this better for you that you can get more out of it?
Colleen?
It would be really helpful, I think, I know for myself, if the investment recovery had a website where where people could present questions like this on a daily basis, because it's great, you're here once a year, but we're all dealing with this every day. So, I mean, we're all coming up with materials that are hard to recycle, and sometimes a lot of people have a lot of different ideas, but if other people can tap into that website and give ideas, that's basically what repurposedmaterials.com does, is that they're just looking out in the general public. What can we do with this? And so sometimes there's somebody out there in an industry that you don't even know about, and they're like, you know what, we can use that. that's great. And we can get it now at a price that's not too bad because it goes direct to the company that has it.
Thank you.
In terms of improving the session, the only thing I can think of right off the top of my head is it might be easier if the furniture arrangement was, facilitated face-to-face conversation a little bit better.
I was going to say that on a regular basis, as questions come up, they can be sent to Jane, and she does disseminate them and then compiles the responses. So that happens a few times a year, so feel free.
Yeah, Paul, I was going to suggest something similar is we can actually, if you're planning to attend the seminar and we have it next year at the same time, is mail in the questions ahead of time, and then we can distribute it to everybody, and then so we come in with actually some suggestions that may facilitate some of the conversation.
But I do think the idea of having a spot on the investment recovery website where you can go in throughout the year and post a question, and then when we get near conference time, or blog, yeah, great idea. Or we get near conference time, we can extract those questions, send them out to everybody who wants to attend. Okay, just want to make sure this is something you want. My role is to make sure that when you walk out of here, you're satisfied that you got your money's worth, you got your questions answered, and that you didn't come in here and listen to a bunch of people lecture you on stuff that doesn't apply to your industry, and you say, I'm not going next year because it was a waste of money. So that's my role as conference committee. Go ahead.
Just one question regarding the legalities of having an open forum / blog style of possible proprietary information, or possible, if it's not sold yet, it's still the company's. So I always worry about how much information I can give. If we just say streetlights, then it's just streetlights, right? So is that something that is a concern for other people in this world?
Well, since Jim's not here, I'm not going to take a stab at this, but yes, that is part of the requirements and responsibilities we have as members and associate members. So we have to be very careful. We walk the fine line. But as long as we don't mention other companies or pricing or anything like that, I think we're, Terry, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, basically the concern when you got competitors all in the same room is the antitrust issues. And as long as Barry said, if you're not sharing pricing, if you're not sharing territories, dividing up territories, or giving proprietary information, an open forum is perfectly okay.
Okay, anybody else? One last chance. You got your last chance to speak into the mic and get your minute of fame. So go ahead. You had too many times.
I love an open mic. Okay, so I'm with the Tennessee Valley Authority. We're a utility like many of you all in here. So I just did. I'm with TVA. So all of y'all that are installing LED lights, please quit because you're killing our generation.
Okay, folks, thank you. It was a great time. I hope you got something out of this, and we will look at doing this again next year and appreciate your feedback. So thanks, and have a great evening, and thanks much.